Credit cards are one of those things that feel completely normal until they're not. You swipe, you pay the minimum, your credit score stays intact, life goes on, and that's exactly the problem. Because on the surface, everything looks fine. But underneath, the math is quietly working against you in a way most people don't catch until it's too late. Today, we're looking at real people, real situations, and breaking down exactly what went wrong and what you should actually do instead. Let's get into it.
I went into $7,000 of credit card debt because of food addiction. Let's talk about it. When I was living down in Florida, I owned my own home and I rented out 2 of the bedrooms. Because my renters were obviously paying me, I was able to use that money to cover my Wi-Fi, my electric, my water, and my lot rent. In addition to that income, I was also working as a front desk receptionist at a nursing home. Now, in hindsight, I should have taken my extra money and put it into savings, but obviously, like any other addiction, food consumed all of my thoughts and all of my money.
Okay, so pause, because I want to make sure you actually caught what happened there, because it's easy to listen to that and think, okay, food addiction, sad story, moving on. But if you do that, you're missing the whole point. Look at what she described. She had 2 income streams, rental income covering her bills. A job on top of that. That's actually a pretty decent financial setup for most people, and she still ended up $7,000 in credit card debt. Here's the thing that most people won't say out loud. This wasn't really a food problem. This was a cash flow problem dressed up as a food problem. The food was just where the money went. It could have been clothes, concerts, Amazon at 2 a.m. It doesn't matter. The mechanism was the same. She had money coming in, and no system telling that money where to go, so it just went to whatever felt good in the moment. Now here's the part I really want to zoom in on, because this is where most people get quietly wrecked without realizing it. She mentioned she was making the minimum payments, $40 on the $5,000 card, $35 on the $2,000 card. And she said it herself. I always kept up with my payments because I didn't want to mess up my credit score. That sounds responsible, right? That sounds like she's doing the right thing. She is not doing the right thing. Paying minimums on maxed out credit cards is not winning. It's just losing slowly. Let me show you what's actually happening with those numbers. A $5,000 balance on a credit card, average interest rate right now is sitting around 21 to 22% APR. If you're only paying $40 a month on that, you're barely covering the monthly interest. You're not really touching the principal. At $40 a month on a $5,000 balance at 21% interest, you're looking at over 20 years to pay that off. And you'd pay more than $5,000 in interest alone, on top of what you borrowed. So that $5,000 credit card effectively costs you $10,000 for food. That's the trap. The minimum payment is not designed to help you. It's designed to keep you paying forever. And the credit score thing? I get it. Your credit score matters. But your credit score surviving while your bank account drowns is not a win. That's just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Now, I'm not here to pile on. She said herself, in hindsight, she should have put that extra money into savings. That's self-awareness. That's the first step. But I want to give you the actual framework, so if you're in a similar spot, you know exactly what to do next. 3 things. Simple. Number 1. Stop treating the minimum payment like it's the finish line. It's not even the starting line. The minimum payment is the floor. Pay anything above it as often as you can. Even an extra $50 a month on that $5,000 card changes the payoff timeline dramatically. Number 2, if you have multiple cards, pick one to attack. The debt avalanche method says, go after the highest interest rate first. The debt snowball says go after the smallest balance first for the psychological win. Either one works. Doing nothing works for no one. Number 3, fix the leak before you patch the boat. If the spending habit that caused the debt is still active, you haven't solved the problem. You've just added a payment. Doesn't matter if it's food, clothes, or anything else. The budget has to change, or the debt just comes back. All right, let's look at another one. This one's a little different, because the situation is worse on paper, but honestly, there's more reason for hope here than you'd think.
I thought it would be funny to show y'all how much debt I've racked up since getting fired in September and being unemployed for the last 9 months. It's pretty bad. I only have 3 cards and I've maxed out majority of them. So here's one credit card. Here's my second, which is maxed out and actually over, interestingly enough. Same for this one. Yep, that's me. Meaning that's a whopping $11,632.98. By the way, I'm 23. So, there's that.
23 years old, $11,632 in credit card debt, unemployed for 9 months. I'll be honest, when I first watched this, that number stung a little, because at 23, that feels enormous. It feels like a hole you can't see the bottom of. But here's what I actually think when I look at this situation. She has a lot of time to fix this. Let's talk about what's actually going on here first. She got fired in September, 9 months go by, no income, or at least not enough, and 3 credit cards slowly get maxed out. 2 of them are actually over the limit, which means she's getting hit with over-limit fees on top of interest charges. That's the part that doesn't show up in the total, but makes everything worse faster. $11,600 at 21% APR. If she's only making minimum payments right now, she's looking at somewhere around $200 a month just in interest. The balance barely moves. And if she's not making any payments, that number is growing every single day she's unemployed. So yes, the situation is real. But here's why I'm not worried about her long term. 23 is not a life sentence, it's a starting point. Most people her age haven't even started thinking about this stuff yet. The fact that she's making a TikTok about it publicly means she's already past the denial phase. That's further along than you'd think. So if you're in a similar spot, young, behind, maybe just got hit with something you didn't see coming, here's what the actual path forward looks like. Step 1, stabilize before you strategize. Right now, the priority is income, any income, because you cannot out-budget a zero. A part-time job, freelance work, picking up shifts somewhere, whatever it takes to stop the bleeding first. The debt conversation becomes a lot clearer once money is coming in again. Step 2, call your card issuers. This one almost nobody does, and it works more often than you'd expect. If you're unemployed and struggling, you can call the number on the back of your card and ask about hardship programs. A lot of issuers will temporarily lower your interest rate, waive fees, or set up a modified payment plan. They would rather work with you than watch you default. It costs them more if you go under. Step 3. Once you have income, use the avalanche. With 3 cards at different balances, you want to identify which one has the highest interest rate and throw every extra dollar at that one while paying minimums on the others. This is the mathematically fastest way out. At 23, with decades of earning ahead of her, this debt is absolutely payable. It's not comfortable, but it's payable. Here's the bigger picture. $11,600 is not nothing, but it's also not the kind of number that defines the rest of your life unless you let it. People have climbed out of 5 times that amount. The difference between the ones who do and the ones who don't isn't income or luck. It's whether they made a decision to actually deal with it. Okay, last one. And this one is interesting. Watch closely.
How do some of y'all have $27,000 in credit card debt?
Pre-pandemic, my husband and I would have about $2,000 on our credit cards at any given time, and it was mostly like extras, right? So like, oh, we're gonna go out to eat, we'll put it on the credit card, or like, oh, we're gonna go to a concert, we'll put it on the credit card, back when a concert could be $60, $80. Our monthly payments were about $100 a month, and it really didn't make or break us. Then the pandemic happened, and my husband lost his salary, and while we were like making less money, everything has become incrementally more expensive. I had a baby and wasn't able to go back to work for a year, so I was putting basically all of our groceries, all of our gas, all of our necessities onto credit cards because you can't pay rent with a credit card. So we would have to use his paychecks for rent and anything else that couldn't be put on a credit card, and then we'd put everything else on the credit cards. I grew up very comfortably middle class, so I do tend to think that like spending money on things like a dance class or like experiences is normal, but I've like completely walked that back since everything's become so expensive. Like truly, we have not done anything outside of just pay for our needs. But we are $30,000 worth in debt from the credit cards. They've turned into loans, and they're about $1,200 a month that we're paying off. $
30,000, $1,200 a month. Groceries, gas, necessities. That's actually the most important thing to take away from this one. Recklessness doesn't always look reckless. It doesn't look like blowing money at the casino or buying things you don't need. Sometimes it just looks like living the way you've always lived, even when the circumstances around you have completely changed. Now look, the pandemic was real. Her husband losing his salary was real. Having a baby and being out of work for a year was real. I'm not dismissing any of that. But somewhere in there, the response to those circumstances needed to change. And it didn't change fast enough. She said it herself. I grew up very comfortably middle class, so I tend to think that spending money on things like dance classes or experiences is normal. And that's a completely understandable way to feel. If that's what you grew up with, that's your baseline. That's what normal looks like to you. The problem is that baseline has a price tag, and that price tag has to match your actual income. When it doesn't, the gap gets filled with credit. Here's the bigger context that nobody really talks about openly. The financial reality your parents raised you in is not the financial reality you're living in. And that's not anyone's fault. It's just true. Groceries are up over 20% since 2020. Rent in most mid-sized cities has nearly doubled in 5 years. The math that worked for the generation before us simply does not work the same way anymore. Same mindset, same comfort level, same habits. Completely different outcome. And if nobody sat you down and explained that clearly, you'd have no reason to question it. But that's exactly why you have to question it now. So, what does the actual path forward look like here? First, get honest about the gap. Not guilty, not ashamed, just honest. There's a difference between the lifestyle you were raised to expect and the lifestyle your current income can actually support. That gap is where the debt lives. You have to see it clearly before you can close it. Second, if you have kids or plan to, this part matters. The conversation you have with them about money has to reflect the world they're going to live in, not the one you grew up in. The lesson isn't that experiences and extras are bad. The lesson is that those things require a plan, and a plan requires knowing your real numbers, not the numbers that feel comfortable. Third, $1,200 a month in payments needs a strategy, not just willpower. She mentioned the cards have been converted to loans, which is actually the right call if the interest rate came down. Debt consolidation at a lower rate can save thousands over the life of the debt. The one thing to watch out for is freeing up those credit limits and using them again. That's where people end up right back at square one. Here's the thing about all three people we looked at today. None of them set out to be in this position. It happened the way most financial problems happen, gradually, quietly, and in a way that felt completely normal right up until it didn't. If any of this hit home, whether it's the minimum payment trap, the spending habits, or just realizing the financial playbook you grew up with needs an update, the next step is actually pretty simple. Stop letting debt eat the money that should be working for you. I did a whole video breaking down exactly when your investments start making more than your actual job, because that's the real goal, not just getting out of debt, but getting to a point where your money is doing the heavy lifting. Link is right there. Go watch that next.